Parasite is a 2019 family drama slash thriller, directed by, I'm going to butcher his name most likely, Bong Joon-ho. And I recently just watched it with my dad. I was over at his house. It's been a minute since I've seen him. And it's one of those movies I never got to see at the theaters, and it came out on demand. So I kind of tricked him to watching it. We were scrolling across, finding some stuff. I made him watch Death Wish. We watched The Warriors for the first time, and we watched Willow Creek. And then he comes across Parasite, and I'm like, that movie is said to have like really like Oscar-worthy like performances and acting. Like it's supposed to be like top tier. And he's like, well, okay, whatever. Let's just watch it. And we ended up watching it. Now, a lot of people would assume that Parasite, or at least from what you've heard, is that it's a horror film of some sort, because that's what the trailers indicate, which it is not a horror film, but it does have horrifying things in it. It has acts of brutality. It has a lot of tension building, but it's not exactly horror. It's more like, it's kind of like Old Boy. There's a lot of scenes in Old Boy where you can, like the pulling of the teeth, where you can like classify that as some sort of like horror trope. But really, the movie's more like a thriller crime drama. The original Old Boy from 2003, not the remake one. For some reason, any remakes that go to America, they just have to butcher it. I'm not going to talk about that, but yes, Parasite is a wonderful film. It is wonderfully directed, and I didn't know the dude made The Host. I had no idea it was from the same guy who directed The Host. That's fairly impressive. It's been a minute since I have seen a few clips of The Host, but I'm fully aware what it is because, I had a bunch of, like, Fangoria magazines and, The Host everywhere. I've seen a few clips. I've seen the trailers. I've seen the reviews. So I have seen that movie here and there. And apparently he directed Snowpiercer, which I thought it was pretty cool. It was a pretty damn cool movie. And I didn't know this until afterwards. So with this movie, you got an unfortunate family and you got a rich family, very privileged, very like they work their way up to the 1%. And with the unfortunate family, they concoct this scheme because their son tutors the daughter of the rich family, and they concoct this scheme to get a slice of that life, to get a slice of getting away from their poor, like Willy Wonka sheltered life, where there's fumigation coming in, there's like bugs everywhere, stink bugs, and every time it rains, there's like sewage coming in. The rich people, when they see the rain, it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of nice. But when you see the poor families, like interpretation of what they see to be as rain, it's just like flooding their streets. It's causing sewage to rise up. And it destroys their home, and they have to end up in a gymnasium, and it's very terrible. But I'm not going to say much more because I know it's going to. For the people who haven't seen it, you probably should. If you care about something like that, you know what? I think everybody should see it at least once in a life. This is one of those films that I absolutely cannot spoil at all. I can just give you the interesting plot line of a poor family, tries to make its way into the rich family's life and potentially ruin it and or scam them one way or another. That's the best I'm going to give you. But the direction, the cinematography, the acting is spot on. The writing is awesome. And there's a lot of things in the film that, like, point arrows and directions that, you're supposed to pay attention to this because it could come up later. And when it does come up later, you can be like, oh, well, that makes sense, then that makes sense, and that makes sense. It's what can I say? It's just wonderful. It's interesting. It's interesting to say at the least. I really dug the film. Pretty good. Very good from a directorial standpoint. I really appreciate films like this. I got to show it to my dad, and he wasn't really connected to like foreign films in the first place because subtitles and whatnot. That was his biggest complaint. But he eventually liked the film, and that made me happy. And the film is just, you probably heard it from everyone. It's absolutely amazing, and there may be a few plot holes, but the first time watching it through, I didn't really find any plot holes. So Yeah, so this is kind of a useless little review, but I can tell you from somebody who was doubtful, I'm like, maybe it's pretty good. It's like a slice of life. I can probably see it as, it's probably directed well. It's probably like shot well, but is it good with the story and the characters? And it is. It's absolutely well. It does everything well, and that's what makes me happy. I like seeing films like that. I think foreign people make a lot better movies than what we in the U.S. ever do, because all we do is a bunch of like, overly tropey, like overly hype, like it's like pleasing to the majority of like, oh, look how hype this is. Story maybe not so bad, but here's some poorly written jokes, probably written by Amy Schumer herself, that kind of stuff, and it's not very pleasing. But I really, 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 really dig films like these. And when it came out the same time as Joker, and it won the Oscar, and you know what? It's one of those things where Joker could have won and Parasite could have won, and nobody might have been like, really angry about it. There was a lot of people angry about it. There was a lot of people like really pissed that Parasite won. And that's confusing to me. Like, it's one of those like, oh, the Oscars got woke, and it's like, yeah, it's a film. It's a film. It's a really good film. It premiered in the U.S. and everywhere else, and it just managed to beat Joker. Nothing we can do about it. They're both really good films. Just be happy that two of these films just came out this year. You know what I mean? It may have not gotten the Oscar, Joker, which is unfortunate, but, Parasite did get the Oscar, and it could have been better, those movies, than anything lower. Like Joker and Parasite, either or, one of them's got to win. People are going to be very mad. The twists at the end of this, during the film, anyway, there's many a twist. There's one that happens that's like completely like off guard. It's almost like a climax itself, even though the movie is not even over yet. And when it happens like, really, really quick. I was kind of surprised because the film slowly builds. And it slowly builds. You get a little comedy. And that's the cool thing about this. It's a false sense of security. That is pretty cool when it comes to movies. There's a false sense of security. And, you got your comedy here, comedy there, and then something slowly appears, and then some situation is happening. You're like, oh, this just changed the film, like, completely. But then they have to deal with that on top of the stuff they did before, and, puzzle pieces got to be put together, and it still builds that tension higher and higher and higher and higher. If I were to give this film out of 10 stars, what I like to do is... well, if I were to go with Chris Stuckman, I'd give this movie an A. Possibly an A+. But out of 10, I would give it like, you know what? Yeah, 9.5 out of 10, and 4.5 out of 5 stars for the 5-star meter. Now, normally I'm the kind of guy who's like, if it's like a 8 out of 10 movie, it's most likely like a 3.5 out of 5 stars for me. I'm kind of weird that way when it comes to movies, but you know what? Film's great. Go watch it. You are doing a misservice not watching it, and it's a wild ride I'll never forget, and I'm very happy to have seen it. Please watch this movie if you haven't. It is a masterpiece. There's some critics that are like going to pick it apart, and they're going to like, say how tropey like some parts are, and that just ruins the whole movie. It's like, oh, the movie's pretty good, the acting's good, the directing's good, the cinematography's good with the camera and all that, the story is good, but that trope just made it drop 3 stars for me. It's like, so yeah, it's 9.5 out of 10 for me. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. I hope your day is very good. Mine is. So, enjoy your day.